esta emisión de Líderes entrevistamos a Irina Zyrianova, prima ballerina del Bolshoi y una de las artistas más destacadas de Moscú. Ella nos habló de su historia y cómo comenzó a bailar a los 9 años y del premio que recibiera de manos del mismo expresidente Boris Yeltsin como una de las artistas más destacadas de su país. Irina Zyrianova, Prima ballerina dancer for the St. Petersburg Ballet. Thank you so much for receiving us here for this interview.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to our Argentine audience.
I know you're from Russia. Can I ask you where you were born?
I was born on the Ural Mountains, not in a quite big town.
From which town are you from?
The Chelyabinsk.
At the age of 9, you had the honor of being selected as a student for the Russian Ballet Studio. What did that honor mean in your life?
Look, I do agree with some saying that your childhood ends in a way, because from 9 years old, it's 8 years studying, and there were a lot of ups and downs, and because everyone has such a similar talent, it's very hard competition for every child starting from the childhood, because you have to compete for your place to be on top while you're at school. It doesn't just happen when you join the company. Company can form you, it transform you and prepare you for something better, but everything starts in that school, in those years when you're studying.
You started dancing in the old Russia. What did it mean for you and your family to be a ballerina in the communist system?
To be a ballerina in Russia was always very privileged profession, and we all know in those days, especially in Cold War, the only good things Russia was mentioned with, it was Russian ballet or Russian art or Russian musicians. That was it was a positive message from the system, I would say. So it was the big competition, but with lots of rewards in it.
Do you think that being a ballerina was an opportunity to get out of the country and have the chance to visit different countries of the world?
Of course, it was a mind opener when I started traveling, because when I started dancing for the company, then the travel came, and we saw, but we were still very much grateful to the country giving us an opportunity to be where we are.
At what age did you start traveling overseas?
I've started traveling since straight after finished school, age 18.
You have danced in the main theaters all over the world. You have danced even for Mr. Nelson Mandela. Which are the main theaters or the scenarios that you keep deep in your heart?
By now I've danced in 30 countries. So and yes, I had this when we came with St. Petersburg Ballet. I was dancing for, then we knew we'll become a new president of South Africa, Mr. Nelson Mandela. And I will never forget, the experience was, I was so nervous. I think my knees were shaking. I didn't know how I will finish Giselle. I was so, and he was sitting in the front row, and on the stage was light. You actually quite see the audience on the front row, and it was just tall figure of Mr. Mandela sitting there, and me, I feel like I'm doing my exam, like a life exam. That's how. And then there was a biggest surprise when he came to my dressing room, like my dressing room after first act, which is very unusual for people to come, and he came, and then he was so kind, and he was saying how much he's enjoying the show and what a beautiful story is. And so that was, I still have a photo when I'm just standing looking at him and my mouth is open.
Is your husband South African?
My husband is South African, and we're trying to have our renewing the wedding ceremony every year, and it should be different country. For that, my husband now has excuse not to mention my birthdays, which I'm very grateful for. But we have together, we celebrate love. We basically celebrate love.
You have danced the Swan Lake, Romeo and Juliet, or the Nutcrackers as the classic dances. Which ones are the performances that you like the most?
When I was little girl, running and watching the productions in the curtains, I wanted to be a Giselle, always wanted to be. Then I was lucky to dance Giselle. Then my dream was to become a swan. So I've become a swan. When I've become interesting for the dancers, they always dream about the next step.
There's a very popular movie called The Black Swan, which characterizes the problems that a ballerina has to go through. Do you feel identified with that movie in any sense?
You always, that is absolutely true in the movie, you always in competition with yourself. Always. And you always work for that last phrase, what maybe public misses because don't have a dancing experience. And I knew the whole movie was about this last phrase she is saying, I was perfect. And that all we're working for.
But we are human beings. We are not perfect.
Russians don't understand that concept.
I would like to know, how do you deal with that aim of perfection in the daily basis?
It does affect you. I think it affects you very much in a positive way. In a way that me as a producer now, on stage, I don't want just to see another good dancers on stage, because first of all, I want to see the best dancers on stage. I want to see the magic of Russian ballet. I want to see something which will surprise even me as a kind of professional ballerina. So in my production, I project this perfection into productions I'm trying to do.
You reached your life dream, becoming the Prima ballerina for the St. Petersburg Ballet. Which are the lessons that you've learned from that experience?
First of all, I think coming back, you probably never will be perfect, but you will be always trying. It gives you a lot of discipline. I think that helps me in life to be focused. I always know what I want. And lots of people might not like it and find it difficult, but you cannot decide on stage. On stage, you should know what you're doing, and it affects my life forever.